Episode 16, Crafting the Risk Strategy, Big Decisions, we step into the heart of Domain 1's purpose, the creation of a coherent, living strategy that guides how an organization approaches uncertainty. This is where philosophy meets logistics, where leadership intent turns into operational design. A risk strategy is not a list of tasks, it is a collection of big choices about ownership, scope, method, and communication. These decisions define how every subsequent action, identification, analysis, response, and monitoring will function. When done thoughtfully, the strategy ensures risk management feels integrated with project success rather than an external checklist. Defining scope boundaries comes next. The strategy must declare what entities fall under its authority: programs, individual projects, vendors, and external partners. Boundaries protect focus and clarify accountability. Including vendors or third parties requires alignment on terminology and expectations. Excluding them requires separate monitoring channels. The professional ensures that each participant knows where responsibility begins and ends. Ambiguity in scope creates gaps that later appear as unmanaged risk. By tracing boundaries early, the strategy avoids future disputes about ownership, authority, and data visibility. Precision here prevents both duplication and neglect. Balancing threats and opportunities is another strategic choice. Many organizations instinctively focus on danger, equating risk with loss. Yet the PMI-RMP discipline defines risks symmetrically, any uncertainty affecting objectives, good or bad. In stable industries, emphasis may remain on threat prevention. In dynamic sectors, opportunity management becomes equally vital. The professional calibrates this balance based on context, ensuring optimism and caution coexist productively. A strategy that only guards against harm stagnates, while one that only chases gain invites chaos. Harmony between the two turns risk management into strategic agility. Determining analytical depth is also crucial. Every organization faces the choice between qualitative simplicity and quantitative sophistication. The rule is qualitative first, quantitative when justified. Qualitative assessments, high, medium, low, capture perception quickly and inclusively. Quantitative models, expected monetary value, simulations, or sensitivity analysis add precision but demand data and time. The professional ensures escalation follows logic. Start broad to map priorities, then apply numbers where stakes or complexity warrant. Over-analysis wastes effort. Under-analysis invites surprise. The right balance turns information into insight rather than arithmetic. Deciding between standard or tailored scales shapes how risks are measured and compared. Standardized scales, uniform across programs, simplify aggregation and benchmarking. Tailored scales, customized for project context, improve local accuracy but complicate roll-up reporting. The PMI-RMP professional advises leadership to begin with standards for maturity and evolve toward tailoring as capability grows. What matters is calibration. Every scale, whether 3-tiered or 5-tiered, must remain intuitive and consistently applied. A strategy that defines clear scoring logic builds trust in results, ensuring debates center on reality rather than on methodology. Escalation thresholds tie directly to appetite. They define the points where risk exposure exceeds tolerance and demands higher-level visibility. Setting these thresholds translates executive philosophy into operational rules. For example, any risk exceeding a certain cost impact or probability automatically moves to governance review. Escalation keeps decision-making proportional. Teams handle manageable risks, while leadership engages only when strategic boundaries are crossed. The professional ensures that thresholds are data-informed yet flexible, reflecting both objective metrics and contextual judgment. Effective escalation prevents both micromanagement and dangerous silence. Integration with schedule and cost control is a hallmark of strategic maturity. Risks do not live apart from timelines or budgets. They shape them. The strategy must define how risk reviews feed schedule updates, reserve allocations, and variance analyses. Integrating these functions ensures that when exposure changes, plans change too. For example, if a high-probability supplier delay emerges, the scheduler adjusts milestones and the controller revises contingency forecasts. The professional's job is to fuse these loops so risk becomes part of daily control, not an afterthought. Integration converts foresight into synchronized action. A related decision involves reserves management, specifically how to distinguish between management reserves and contingency reserves. Management reserves cover unknown unknowns at a portfolio or executive level. Contingency reserves handle known risks within the project scope. The strategy defines who owns each and how release triggers operate. If control is unclear, reserves either remain locked when needed or drained prematurely. Linking reserves to risk thresholds ensures traceability. Funding follows evidence, not persuasion. When leaders see that reserves exist for purpose rather than padding, confidence in forecasts strengthens dramatically. Reporting style is another reflection of culture. Some organizations thrive on dashboards, visual summaries with color-coded indicators. Others prefer narrative reports that explain context and causality. Dashboards deliver speed, narratives deliver depth. The PMI-RMP professional recommends a dual-layer approach: concise visuals for executives and detailed narratives for working teams. The goal is not just to report data, but to tell a coherent story: where exposure stands, why it matters, and what action is underway. A well-crafted reporting strategy turns information into influence, shaping perception as much as performance. Trade-off decisions are inevitable, and the strategy must define how they are made. Competing priorities, cost versus schedule, safety versus speed, short-term gain versus long-term resilience, require consistent decision criteria. These criteria may include value impact, probability, reversibility, or stakeholder alignment. The professional ensures that trade-offs follow structured logic rather than personality. Documented criteria transform subjectivity into shared reasoning, reducing conflict and hindsight bias. When teams understand the basis of decisions, they respect outcomes even when outcomes demand sacrifice. Strategy thus becomes governance in action, not theory. Documenting rationale for each strategic choice ensures auditability and institutional learning. Future teams can understand why specific methods or thresholds were selected, preventing reinvention or misinterpretation. Clear documentation also supports external audits, demonstrating due diligence and alignment with policy. The PMI-RMP professional captures context, constraints, alternatives considered, and justification alongside final decisions. This transparency builds resilience. When circumstances change, updates start from understanding rather than guesswork. Documentation transforms memory into heritage, preserving the reasoning that shaped risk governance. Socializing the strategy is as important as writing it. A document alone cannot shape behavior. People must see themselves in its logic. The professional conducts briefings, workshops, and informal sessions to explain choices, invite questions, and align expectations. Socialization turns compliance into commitment. When team members understand why a strategy exists and how it benefits them, adoption becomes natural. Real buy-in arises not from approval signatures, but from conversation. A risk strategy succeeds only when it is lived daily, not archived neatly. Engagement converts intent into culture. Every decision within the risk strategy must trace back to objectives. Alignment ensures efficiency. Effort flows toward value protection, not bureaucratic ritual. The PMI-RMP professional verifies this connection explicitly. Each choice, from ownership model to reporting format, should support the organization's goals in measurable ways. A well-crafted strategy becomes the bridge between executive appetite and operational discipline. It defines not only how the organization manages uncertainty, but also how it learns from it. Clarity in these big decisions sets the tone for everything that follows. Risk work grounded in purpose, proportion, and precision. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.